Yo, what is up guys? Welcome back to the Arcmoon channel. So a few weeks ago, the final chapter of Attack on Titan, chapter 139 dropped. Everyone was destroying it on social media. A bunch of people critiqued it via YouTube videos, some of which had a lot of valid and well thought out critiques like King Bullets. In my YouTube short where I teased this video, I expressed that I would talk about the merits of the chapter, however. The positive side seems to be totally missed even with the oversaturation of opinion videos and posts made on various social media sites. No, I certainly don't think the chapter is nearly of the same quality as the rest of the manga, and there are a lot of things that are either left unresolved or were not executed that well. But the end was certainly not devoid of any positive components. Now I'm going to talk about the events leading up to the conclusion of the story rather than just the last chapter in isolation. My stance at the conclusion was that while it was not the ideal ending, it wasn't so bad that my opinion on the series as a whole turned negative, which, by the way, I've seen a lot of people say all over the place, which to their credit isn't totally unfounded. Before I start though, I just wanted to give a big spoiler warning for the end of the Attack on Titan manga, which is yet to be adapted into an anime. Although, with the introduction, this should have been fairly obvious. So I'll start with some of the critiques, although I won't go that into detail on this part, since this is the portion that everyone on the internet seemed to be focused on. I'll also respond to the critiques if I have anything on them, although some of them are just defenseless. One of the main things that people were angry about was how Eren's character was resolved and how his actions are hypocritical and strange. He left Eldia in a terrible condition after his death with the eradication of the Titans, their only weapons, and they're 50 years behind other nations on technology, so any war they may enter in the near future is bound to wipe them all out. Eren should also be aware of this because both he and Historia agreed that the only end to the war comes with the total annihilation of one of the sides, so his wiping out 80% of the world's population should be insufficient for Eldian peace in his own words. Now this critique would make sense if the remaining 20% is still a lot of people, although it is possible that the world is less populous than ours to begin with and that the rumbling does actually sufficiently destroy international infrastructure such that Eldia is safe. But who really knows? Additionally, although Eren died in a way such that Armin, Mikasa, and his friends would be regarded as saviors or heroes, much of the world may still harbor hatred for Eldia, as they were the root of the global, ecologically catastrophic attack. The murkiness of the situation is one of the main complaints. It may be true that Eren's plan was a failure. However, Isayama implies that it wasn't because the Marleyan opinion seems to change in the brief exchange Armin had with the enemy troops, although it is still very uncertain and it may very well be a failure. Another point people were angry about was Eren's hypocrisy. He once said that he would not harm or manipulate his friends. His master plan seems to be entirely contradictory to that. He has to literally fight all of them in the climax of the story. He beats up Armin, turns everyone into Titans, and is the cause of his own mother's death retroactively, and even manipulates Mikasa into killing him to execute his plan. Now, I would like to argue that his initial statement of not manipulating his friends was actually a lie that was a part of the manipulation, a way to create a persona for himself so that his plan would actually work. They needed to feel sufficiently betrayed in order to have the resolve to fight him. Mikasa needed to break the Ackerman curse and free herself despite her love specifically. This is obviously consistent with the way Eren manipulates people and lies anyways. In Season 4 specifically, Eren badmouths Mikasa and Armin and even claims to hate Mikasa in order to create a false persona of himself. The things that seem out of character for Eren may have just been a deception he played even on the readers themselves. Now this may seem like a petty excuse or something, and it very well may be, but I think looking at this in this way can salvage the writing and add an extra layer of intrigue when talking about Eren's character. At what point can we trust that Eren's being honest? Now, in the last chapter, one of the things that really infuriated everyone was that he told Armin that he was in the moment. Armin even commented about Eren loving hell. This seems strange for someone of Eren's character type, but it is fairly realistic. Someone in a position of overwhelming power is likely to get drunk off of it by nature of their very position. In the Stanford prison experiment, probably one of the most well-known social experiments ever conducted, the subjects that portrayed jailers and guards naturally became hostile and sadistic in the enforcement of the rules onto the subjects who portrayed prisoners. Eren being drunk on power is a commentary on how humans, even with ambition and specificity in their goals, can become deluded into contradicting their normal goals and personality without self-control. This makes sense physiologically too, with how hormonally induced aggression is always present in combat. Eren is not the perfect executioner of a perfect plan. He is flawed and imperfect and immature. Eren is not Lelouch. This actually makes him more interesting to me. He is merely a slave to his fate and a slave to his shifting emotions. This lack of freedom, more specifically the lack of freedom of rationality, is a result of his subjugation to passion. This makes him a very different type of character than we thought. Now, onto the idea of freedom. The idea of freedom in Attack on Titan is murky. One of the coolest dialogues in the entire series is a few chapters earlier between Zeke and Armin. Zeke is a giga edgelord like Arthur Schopenhauer. He believes that life is merely suffering and pain, and that in death is freedom from that. Zeke is clearly an antinatalist, as he explains that in killing people, you are setting them free from existential suffering, as well as their potential offsprings. This is obviously consistent with his original plan to sterilize the Eldians anyways. Now, the idea Zeke pushes that there is freedom in death is strongly connected to Eren's character arc and eventual fate a few chapters later. Armin contests Zeke on his existential philosophy and asserts the idea that there is meaning in particular moments in life that make suffering worth tolerating. The object he shows Zeke is the baseball he used to use when playing catch with the previous Beast Titan as a young boy. Moments of mutual positive emotion are worth everything. Zeke comes around to this idea, reminiscing on his past. He even says that he would actually like to be reborn to once again play catch with his friend. Armin counters Zeke's original thesis that in life is only the pursuit of meaningless multiplication with the introduction of the leaf that brings Armin back to memories of his companionship with Eren and Mikasa, things he truly finds meaningful. There's meaning in these moments to Armin. The way Eren links up to this is how he, having the Founding Titan, can see the future. Now, I think it actually makes sense to assert that if he can see an unchanging future and believes he is not free in a metaphysical manner, then in Attack on Titan, determinism is true, and that his knowledge of the future is merely knowledge of things he will do, rather than the future being an option to consider while planning. Eren literally had no agency, no free will to change what had been set into motion. Eren literally says to Armin, "My head's gotten all messed up. The Founder's powers has made it so that there's no past or future. It all exists at once. So, I had to do it." This pretty much confirms a metaphysical theory of time called B-theory or static theory, by which the universe is a four-dimensional block with three spatial dimensions and a dimension of time, and that everything exists within the block, the past, present, and future. There is no objective distinction between times. To Eren, all of these things just happen. He is a metaphysical slave. What's happening now is merely relative to when you are on the block. This is why Eren tells Armin that even if they didn't stop him, in the end, that, quote, "I don't know why, but I wanted to do that. I had to." This actually more supports Zeke's original stance that the nature of reality is such that there is no free will and that only in non-existence is there freedom from a determined future. This, however, does not invalidate Armin's point. Armin's point is that there is meaning in connection, so even if things were always bound to occur, practically, they can derive meaning from things like friendship. Eren actually believes this as well, as he says to Armin that he does not want to die, and that he wishes that Mikasa wouldn't move on and would love him forever. He still values connection and love, despite also wanting freedom, and he can't have both. This is actually a very nuanced position that neither Zeke nor Armin are totally correct. Once Eren dies and is reincarnated as a bird, of course there is some overt symbolism that birds are free and can fly above the walls of the city that he grew up in. However, this bird is still a slave to fate by nature of the metaphysics in place. However, the bird maintains that balance between Zeke's and Armin's positions. The bird is no longer bound by the knowledge of the future, so that the illusion of free will is still maintained. and that the perspective of slavery is unfounded, and that it can still experience meaningful moments like when it pecks Mikasa's scarf in the final panels. This bird is free from clairvoyance and can therefore pursue meaning through living as if only the present mattered. So although there may be some arguments for Eren's plan being selfish or dumb, he at least says that the purpose of the plan was to narratively elevate his friends to the status he believes they deserve, that of brave heroes. The reason why Eren may not have been able to exactly predict the future after his death in order to make the perfect world for Eldia is shown when he even tells Armin that he doesn't know what will happen after his death. Eren being imperfect is not divine in the sense that he can shape history, but rather that he is limited in his capacity for even future sight and agency. Finally, the story had to end so that Mikasa kills Eren. Although fate was set up this way, it is all the more heroic and interesting that she killed the one she loved most as well as the one she was born to protect. She was not physically, but rather narratively set free in a sense. Obviously, there are loads of other characters that I can talk about in future videos that are not entirely relevant to the ending, so I'll save other characters for later. Expect a video where I talk about the parallels between Eren, Grisha, Reiner, Falco, and Gabi in the context of war and nationalism in the future. If you like Attack on Titan, anime, manga, or philosophical content, please like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications of future uploads. This has been Arcmoon. Thank you, Isayama.